Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
By God, I'm red and white today. Look at I was doubling as a candy striper at the hospital, and I just came, right back from there this morning, and here I am, by God, and I'm feeling great.
What is a candy striper?
You don't know what a candy striper is?
Well, I've heard that before, but I don't think in my day I've ever seen a candy striper until today, of
Really?
course. But what is a candy striper? What do they do? What is their
So
function?
candy striper is someone that helps out at the hospital. Okay, they don't get paid, and they wear like a candy stripe like this vest or jacket, and they go and they help. They go in and they bring reading materials to folks that are in the hospital, maybe don't have anything to do. Hey, could you get me something to read? They bring books, they bring drinks to people in the hospital and things like that. They overall just pretty much help out, and they're called candy stripers because of the dress that they wear. So I knew Kelly Risk and J. Frank Dobie High. She was a candy striper. So
So you wore this shirt in honor of her today?
no, I just wore this shirt because you guys gave me shit last week, and I said don't even like have buttons on my shirts anymore, so that I can't button them up because I don't like to button them up.
Well, what you like to do is set the record straight. And you told us just before we clicked record that you had something you wanted to clear up. So the floor is yours, Mr. Prichard.
Well, yeah, no, there was something on Twitter, and there was a wrestling site that went back to the Great American Bash, and we actually talked about this recently when we were in Baltimore, and it was one of the worst, if not the worst, King of the Ring that we ever did. It was headlined by Roddy Piper and Jerry the King Lawler. I don't even remember who won the King, but Art Donovan was a guest color commentator with Macho Man Randy Savage and Gorilla Monsoon. And during the day, my good friend Ricky Medlock was in town, wanted to come over and say hi, and we asked Ricky to sing the Star Spangled Banner. Long and short of it, they put two quotes of me in there. And when I read it, like the second part was, it appeared as if I was knocking Ricky, the way that it was worded, and the way that I was pulled out of context. And I asked my good friend, good close personal friend, yours too, Conrad, Dave Silva. I said, Dave, could you pull this up for me and find this? And he found it for me, and I listened to it, and it just was taken out of context. And that just kind of bothered me a bit because I love Ricky. And I think on Ricky's worst day that he couldn't be horrible or bad. He's just Ricky Medlock. My God, he's a rock and roll legend.
Yep.
So, while I do love Ricky, I think that Ricky is absolutely one of the greatest artists that I've ever had the pleasure of being around. And the fact that he came over and did this, and what I was referring to when I was saying this was god awful, was the conditions. Because again, we didn't have monitors in the ring so that he could hear himself. He was counting, which is a sign of a true professional musician that is able to take a horrible situation and make the most out of it. And Vince thought he was horrible, but you know what it was. And so, Ricky, if you read that, know that you were excellent, and I will forever be grateful for you coming over that day and gracing us with your presence and doing that, because I thought that was that is up there with one of the coolest things I've ever done in my career, was be able to talk him into doing that and to be a part of a rock and roll legend. So,
Well, we're hoping to add to the legend of the Great American Bash 2004 today. It went down way back on June 27th at our Norfolk Scope in Norfolk, Virginia. There's 6,500 fans there, and it's the first ever WWE pay-per-view from the Scope. There's about 5,500 fans there who would pay $320,000. It did a 0.43 buy rate, which roughly translates to 3.6 million in company pay-per-view revenue. That means there were 238,000 buys. That's the global number. 172 of those were domestic, 172,000, of course. The price was $34.95. And it's notable because this is actually the first pay-per-view with the name The Great American Bash, at least on the WWE side of things. I guess technically it's the 15th event under the Great American Bash name, which of course started way back with Dusty Rhodes and Jim Crockett Promotions. As a fan, I always kind of found it curious that we didn't really adopt Halloween Havoc. We didn't adopt Bash at the Beach. We didn't adopt Starcade. Great American Bash gets the nod, though. What do you think Vince likes so much about the name Great American Bash?
He didn't like any of it. And when you talk about those things, so for example, the Great American Bash was something that was usually celebrating during the month of July or 4th of July and America's independence, and was the Great American Bash. Halloween Havoc. Those were things that were very US based. Okay. It was the 4th of July. That was the birth of America. Halloween Havoc. Halloween is not necessarily celebrated globally. And that's why Vince didn't like those as pay per view names, because globally, people didn't understand them. And globally, if you've been out of the country any time in the last 4 years, 5 years, uh, shit, really anytime, the United States of America is not the most well liked country in the world.
No.
So to celebrate and have America in the name is a detriment globally, because people like, why do I want to celebrate America? America's trash. So that's the viewpoint of a great number of people internationally. And that's why those themed shows weren't something that, we ever really wanted to do, because it just kind of put a spotlight on it. And you don't want to do that.
I love picking your brain about why things were the way they were. But what about the Norfolk Scope? I mean, it was a home of so many WCW and JCP and NWA pay-per-views, but it sort of caught me off guard that in '04 this is the first WWE pay-per-view there. Do you think Vince perceived that to be, oh, that's that Southern wrestling area? Or why did the Scope not get more love, do you think?
Have you been to the Scope?
No.
Okay, then. That's look, man. Scope is not a nice building. It's. I guess in WCW lore, it has some kind of mystique to it, but it's not like the greatest building in the world. And uh, the Scope is the Scope, but also it's look. The only reason that we picked the Scope at that point probably was just for routing. Vince probably had no input in that at all. It just was a case of, oh, hey, we're going to be in the southeast during this time, going through here. Scope's available on this date. Okay, great. Can it handle our equipment? Can it handle the set? Can it do? Okay, great. Then it's in.
Let's talk about where business is. We're going to compare '03 to '04 in the month of June. Attendance goes from 4822 to 4362. So there's about 9.5% fall off in attendance year over year. The gates, though, are up 3.5% because we've raised ticket prices. We're not selling out any buildings at this point. And our ratings are down on Raw 1.6%. Our ratings are down on SmackDown 7.5%. But I got to say, man, again, I don't know the wrestling business, but 4,800 to 4,300 doesn't seem like a huge drop off. And 1.6% in the ratings. I mean, that's a rounding error, right? This isn't cause for concern year over year from '03 to '04, would you say?
No, no, not at all. I think that's business. Business kind of, deviates a little bit here and there. Now, if it was 10% or 20%, then you're going to look at it and go, okay, what do we do to fix this?
One of the things that we're trying here in '04 is we're making Eddie Guerrero a much more featured player, to the point we actually had, I don't think most wrestling fans listening to this are familiar with the DVD that Eddie had, Cheating Death, Stealing Life. What a lot of people may forget is that was actually a television special made for UPN that aired on May 26th here in 2004. The DVD would come out much later, but this was designed to be a television special. But as luck would have it, based on scheduling, it's heads up with the American Idol finals. So the documentary on Eddie gets a 1.05 rating. Meanwhile, American Idol gets a 17.74 rating. I thought this was fabulous. It was critically acclaimed. People said, "Hey, this is proof that WWE can do a great riveting documentary." But boy, timing. Heads up with the finals of American Idol. It's a shame.
Well, yeah, because it was counter programming to that, and it
Yeah.
was something UPN wanted to do because look, everybody thought that American Idol was going to get those kind of numbers, and they knew that. So, from UPN's point of view, they wanted to be able to put something on that was different, and hence, it was a show that was already done, and it was something that was put together, and it was a freebie. So put that out there and give them some counter programming. I dare say that if you were to compare that special to what they ordinarily would have run in that time slot, that it probably did a lot better than that.
Around this same time, we would see Mr. Landsberg of TSN, Michael Landsberg. He's had several pretty notable wrestling interviews in this era. He would sit down with Vince McMahon in the past and Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart, so many others, Eric Bischoff. But here in '04, he does another interview. It's a two-parter with Vince McMahon. And one of the things that's notable is it comes up about Stone Cold. And of course, he's on the outs with Austin at the time. And he's talking about the fact that Austin wasn't given a new contract or the contract wasn't signed because WWE is a publicly traded company and they can't be giving away their intellectual property, even if they personally like someone. And Landsberg would say, "Yeah, but you let Dwayne Johnson own the name The Rock." And Vince would clarify, "No, that's not true. WWE has only given Dwayne Johnson a license to use the name Rock in Hollywood." But it's written by Wade Keller at the time. Ironically, the funny part about this is Austin would settle for the ability to use the name on outside projects, but WWE still owning the name. Let's talk about that for a minute. How big of a sticking point and point of contention was this? That Austin wanted to use the name Stone Cold in Hollywood and Vince just wouldn't let him, but seemingly did allow The Rock. Is that the way you understood it, or is that off base?
And well, but again, I think you said it yourself, and him clarifying it is there was a licensing fee paid, and WWE participated every time that Rock used the name The Rock. That's a licensing fee. So the company is paid for that. Steve just wanted to use Stone Cold and didn't want to use it as license, didn't want to have WWE involved in it. And I promise you that if they had come back with a licensing fee and said, we'd like to license it and you're going to get paid every time that the Stone Cold moniker is used, that would have been a completely different deal. So it wasn't just, no, you can't do this. I'm sure they would have agreed to the same type of deal they did with Rock.
It's insinuated in the torch here that that offer was not extended to Austin, that he wasn't even offered the opportunity to do a license deal. And you throw in the flag
I don't
on
know. The
that.
offer was extended to Rock, and I think they came back with, "Hey, what if?"
I got you.
So
I got you.
you know what I mean? It's like I'm sure that Wade Keller and Dave Meltzer were a part of those meetings and were very intricately involved in exactly what was and what was not offered in the interest, why and how.
There's another
So,
comment here that I wanted to clarify because I think this could have been part of it. McMahon said he made Austin what he considered a fair offer and Austin turned it down, but also noted that it's harder negotiating through lawyers and specifically noted he didn't like Austin's current attorney, who he said knew nothing about wrestling and was making demands. McMahon did admit that Austin made him more money than any wrestler in history. Vince said the fans don't want the Austin who can't wrestle, claimed he had walked out twice and been forgiven twice, and said the wrestler Stone Cold Steve Austin is done. He can't do what he used to do, but he does have some value and maybe back at some time. Do you think this was a function of, just the lawyers getting involved and that was the end of that?
well, I would think that that had a lot to do with it because I know that, look, man, it's hard to negotiate with somebody who has no real skin in the game. So for a lawyer or an agent to negotiate on behalf of someone and then start telling you what they will and won't do, and you as a producer, you as a creator, or you start the relationship with handcuffs on. And I've had agents say, well, I need to see the creative. And I'm like, okay. Good for you. I don't share creative with agents or managers. I will share it with the talent and I will talk to the talent about it because the talent is the one that we are looking to deliver this creative. If the talent would like to share it with you and you would like to give your opinion, but I'm not going to listen to your opinion on the creative. I don't care. That's me. Dealing with lawyers and dealing with agents in that regard, that's just a bad combination when you're dealing with when the person that is doing the negotiation is also involved in the creative end of things. Because again, they're not there. They're not going to be there. They're not going to be in the ring taking the bumps. They're not going to be the guys that are going to decide whether or not I'm going to do this physically or not. So, harsh as it may sound, I don't give a shit what a lawyer or an agent thinks. And that's why, I'm said it before, I'm the world's worst negotiator, but I would rather negotiate directly with the talent than negotiate with an agent or a lawyer. And look, they're there to do their job and do their purpose, but a lot of times deals go south more with an agent or a lawyer involved than they do when it's just with the talent.
Let's talk a little bit about the Hulk Hogan side of the story here, because while he's visiting with Landsberg, that comes up about the Hulk Hogan piece of business. And it's written here McMahon at the time said he would never use him as a talent again, although we could see bringing him in for a non talent role at some point. When asked about that and the circumstances of Hogan's latest departure, McMahon said he didn't remember what they were. He said he and Hogan had a good relationship and would consider bringing him back. Is it fair to say that over the years, that, for lack of a better phrase, maybe Hogan and McMahon have just had a on again, off again relationship?
Yes, I mean it's a love hate relationship, and it's very on again, off again, depending upon whose point of view that you're looking at. So yeah, man, I think that they needed each other, they loved each other, and they hated. So it was a constant churn, and it was like clockwork. You could usually tell when, okay, this is getting ready to go off the rails because it was, the same situations, the same things would happen, and you knew it was coming. You just knew it was coming when it was coming.
He's also asked about Sting here on Off the Record and, or on the record rather. And when he's asked about Sting,
Maybe he asked him off the record.
well, he said, I don't think the company is going to be doing anything with Sting. And he said that here in 2004. And we know eventually, 10 years later, we did something with Sting. Why do you think Vince wasn't so optimistic on Sting in '04?
I believe in '04 that we had talked to Sting a few times. And it all, look, man, with Sting, it always got down to, at least in the when I was there and those situations, it always got down to the last minute and Sting would either get cold feet or, the deal wasn't right or what have you. And it would always end up falling through. And this is going back to 1988 or 1989. And, I think that Vince, kind of felt that there were some guys that maybe weren't going to come, that didn't want to come to WWF. And okay, great. Next, we're not going to waste our breath on it. We're not going to waste our time. When they're ready to come, they know our number and we'll be happy to talk to them during that time. But in the efforts that we had made during those times up until that point to deal with Sting, just it never worked out.
Landsberg also asked him about the WWE steroid policy. This is, as a reminder, in this era, boy, there was a lot of discussion in baseball and other major sports about steroids. And Vince says here they didn't have a policy and didn't test for steroids. Now, I know that's going to change. Does that change become brought about because of what happened to Eddie Guerrero? Or when do you recall the steroid thing being a hot button issue again for WWE? Because it's not no 04, according to Vince.
No, it's not, and the reason it was not was due to the cost and due to, okay, really and truly, is there an issue? And when you look at it in competitive sport and entertainment,
Yeah, it's different.
all right, Sylvester Stallone, Sly was on steroids,
Still,
okay?
still is.
Okay, he may be, but Schwarzenegger was on steroids. Those guys, and they've admitted it. I'm not making accusations. I am merely talking about what they have talked about over the years.
Yes.
Um, in Hollywood, and nobody complained. Nobody said, "Oh, by God, that movie shouldn't have made all that money because that movie was made on steroids." Yes, it was, and that was what people did. We were in the entertainment business. We were sports entertainment. And it wasn't a contest to see if the steroids are giving me an unfair advantage over you because I am now stronger and bigger than you, um, that I'm really defeating you. No, it was entertainment. So it wasn't that big of a deal at the time. And I think is again progression and the world in general, when we learn more things about everything. Uh, you change and you go with the times and you make changes that are best for the performers that you have at the time. And I think that we made the right choice in our testing and our medical policies, that we changed. I think it was like 05, 06, whenever the hell that was, that made it better for the performers and safer for the performers so that they were taken care of, but it was monitored, and you know, it was a sign of the times. That's all it was.
I wanted to ask you too about an interesting question. I didn't even remember Vince ever being asked, but Landsberg asked if he could turn back time, would he have purchased WCW? And Vince's response was part of him wishes he never made the deal. And he's sort of indicating that maybe just one company having the entire business wasn't the best thing. Did you ever have conversations like that with Vince about whether or not
Yeah,
that was a positive in the end?
whether or not the purchase of WCW was,
Yes.
again, I think that the way it was done, what we did purchase was good, and it was good for the company. To have another company out there that's viable, which became TNA, um, that's good. It's good for the talent to have a place to go. It's good for people to be able to go work and have an alternative. Yes, that is important. And at the time, WCW was going away. Spite of, I know Eric wanted to buy it. There were other, suitors allegedly out there. Vince was looking for the library, knew what he wanted to do with the network. So that, that was in play then. And people go, oh, the network didn't come out until 2011, whatever. As the network was in play in the 90s. Um, Vince was looking for that library. Vince wanted that library. That's one thing he did want. Whether he wanted to run another company, nah, I don't think that was ever really his goal. We talked about it. We talked about it in a lot of different ways, but I don't know that was ever the goal was to have another company. And I think that having a second company or a third company or a fourth company where talent can go and work. And TNA had started by then, and that was the case. And I think that was good for talent to have someplace else to go. I think that's what he meant by that.
He was also asked by Landsberg about his potential successor. If something were to happen to him, what would be the plan? And Vince sort of indicates it would be a group effort. And he specifically mentions family members Shane, Stephanie, and Triple H as those who might be running things. Was succession a plan that was that something that was discussed in '04 that you recall? I mean, I know obviously it's been discussed a lot in the last 5 years or so, but 20 years ago, were people still talking about it?
Oh, absolutely. Look, those were real discussions that you had to have before you ever went public. Because in going public with a board and you're now a publicly traded company, if I'm owning stock, I want to know what the succession plan is. If it's like the one man show that it is in Vince McMahon, then what happens? He steps off a curb and gets hit by a bus. What happens to the company? And I will go back to, the early 90s, when Jerry Jarrett allegedly, oh my God, he's going to come in and run the company. Never ever the case. Again, I'll keep stating that because that's the truth. Um, Vince looked at it then, if he went to jail, that we were all going to do our jobs and we would run it. It was a group. Everybody was in place. Everybody in their positions were trained so that they would continue to do what they do and run as a group. And same thing with the succession plan. Vince was putting people in places so that they would be in the right place if something were to happen to him and the company would continue on.
We should talk about how great business is abroad. You guys ran shows the last week of May in Dublin. You actually ran a show in Dublin on May 26th and again on May 27th. Both shows went on sale the same day. Both shows sold out the same day in the same city. And it's noted in the newsletters at the time. This might be the first time that's ever happened. Now, I know this would happen much more frequently when we started to make a weekend of it, where we might have like a SmackDown and an NXT pay-per-view and a WWE pay-per-view and a Raw. I mean, it would be back to back to back. I get that. But back in '04, that had to be kind of cool. Hey, we're in the same town back to back days and it's sold out both days. That's new territory for WWE, is it not?
Beautiful luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great because you don't have to you don't have the added expense and added wear and tear of having to tear down and then move on to another town and then set up in that town and tear down. You set up, you leave it, and you go. So that's a plus anytime that you can pull that off. Saves money, saves time.
There's of course a lot of reporting at the time about what is Brock Lesnar going to do. And there's a lot made about Brock Lesnar's lifestyle. It's noted that when he was in the WWE, allegedly, according to an article written by Mark Craig in the Minneapolis Star Tribune, that he was making $9 million a year. Respectfully, there was roughly 0% chance of that. Would that be fair to say, Bruce?
That would be very fair to say.
Why do you think that's become? Because I mean, you and I have talked about this off air, and I know we don't usually talk about stuff like this on the podcast, but why do you think it's gotten out of hand where you're seeing, oh, so and so's making $15 million a year, and oh, this person just signed as a writer $1 million a year, and it's like, wait, what? Like, how has this just got? And don't get me wrong, I think it's great that folks are making more money and there's more money to be made in wrestling and blah, blah, blah. Roll Tide on all that. But some of this stuff that I see online, I just shake my head like, that ain't even close to true. Where's this coming from? Do you
So wait a minute, you're saying that Dave Meltzer and Wade Keller are lying?
No, I've never seen
because
them
they
report
do.
that.
Because they do. I would like to all answer that for you. Because they do. That's what they do. They lie. They make up shit and they lie, or they hear something from someone who's just seen if he can get it printed or get it retold by Dave, and they lie. And it's just inaccuracy. And it's someone who doesn't know the business and isn't a part of the business, not a fan of the product. Okay. It's one thing to be a fan of the product and you want to talk about the product and what you like and what you don't like. But when you start talking about actual business things that you don't know anything about, that's what you got. You got a lot of people go, oh God, oh my God, so-and-so's a billionaire, so they must be overspending for everything that they're doing. No. Only one that knows is that billionaire and their accountant.
Or that $1 billion corporation, whoever we may or may not be talking about. I just think
Right.
it's fascinating to me that, I mean, this isn't something that's written in the Observer or the Torch. This is in the Minneapolis paper. And it's
Doesn't
like,
make it any better.
that's what I'm saying though. It's like, But I know that based on your little rant at the beginning about Wade and Dave, people are
Well,
going
who
to
do you
jump
think
on
his
them.
sources were? His sources were probably Dave Meltzer.
Well, it's corrected in the torch. I believe the 7-year contract he signed was for a $9 to $10 million total downside. So now, is that true that he made $9 million? Absolutely, I believe that. Not annually, but over the course of the contract. Okay. Either way, though, it's written here. It's noted he purchased
Maybe.
an 8-seat twin engine plane as a personal pilot and lives on 47 acres. Boy, when I read that, I was thinking he'll be back in WWE next year. If only because unlike somebody like Austin, who doesn't live high on the hog and has had years of huge money, Lesnar had 2 years at about $1 million, which is good money, but that's not enough for life. And so he starts to break down exactly, what he thinks his next opportunity is going to be. And at the time, as folks will recall, he decided he wanted to play professional football as someone who didn't play in college. And there's going to be a lot of public workouts, and there is a lot of interest because he has notoriety. But Green Bay, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Dallas, and San Francisco are all sending representatives, according to Lesnar's agent, just to see him work out. And the Ravens are supposed to be showing serious interest, but they haven't brought him in yet. And he's got a 475 bench and a 695 squat. And he's running a 4.5 40 at 290 pounds. And people are really excited about his prospect of playing in the NFL. And we know he ultimately makes the practice team with the Ravens, or I'm sorry, the Vikings, and it doesn't really work out. Did you think there was ever a chance that Brock could have actually transitioned and become an NFL superstar?
Yes.
Wow.
Man, Brock is an enigma. Brock is, I'm not sure if he's completely human. He is one of these extremely unique individuals in that his athleticism is, it's hard to match, man. His size, his athleticism, his drive. Um, I've never seen anything like it. He is really a unique guy, and I think that had Brock had a little bit more time to focus and do it, I think that you know would he have had a career of 5 6 years playing football? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I think if he had more time to prepare and more time to really get into it, that I think that he would have succeeded, and I think that he would have played and actually been somebody that people went, "Holy shit, look at this guy." So again, man, Brock is one of those animals that you look at and go, "Holy cow, he shouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that he does." But yeah, he's an extraordinary, extraordinary human being.
There's no doubt that he is a special athlete. And of course, the topic of steroids becomes an issue with Lesnar. And it's pointed out that he took 2 tests in OVW, passed them both, and it's been said he passed several times in WWE. He's even saying, I'll test for any team here. And of course, it's noted in the torch that he was arrested in OVW for possession of steroids, but upon further analysis, it wasn't actually steroids. Lesnar called it food supplements, and someone else said, oh no, it was growth hormone. Either way, though, there wasn't a negative or a public test failure of Brock Lesnar until he was in the UFC. Why do you think there was always so much speculation about Brock? Why were people so fascinated with this? They have to have a reason that he's as jacked and he's the specimen he is? It can't be that he's just different. It's got to be something else.
Yeah, because you can't do it.
Yes.
Okay. And here is someone who has devoted their entire life, and you look at them growing up as a skinny little kid, and then when they bulk up, as a teenager and start really working out in different ways and eating right, doing everything that they're doing. Yeah, Brock is a different cat. He's a different cat. You look at John Cena, who won all these amateur bodybuilding awards. People said, "Oh, he must be on something." John Cena would say, "At any given time, any day, any hour of the day, anywhere in the world, test me." and has been tested, so many times. I did a spot test on him for his initial contract, passive flying colors. So, he took such great pride in being a natural athlete that, Brock, you know, whatever he's done and or, in the past, it's like these were guys that were just natural studs that worked their entire life to do what they do. And later on, man, you find other ways to supplement. Maybe he did. I don't know, but I know with Cena that's a bone of contention with him, and that he feels very strongly about his physique, how he accomplished his physique, and how hard he works. And anybody that knows John knows how hard John works to maintain that physique, even today at his age. So he's an incredible athlete and just one of those phenoms.
It's suggested by the Vikings head coach that, hey, man, you've got good physical numbers, the bench and box jump and, all the stuff that they're doing, the
But
sprinting.
can you play football?
That's right. Hey, you need to go hire a defensive end coach and come on back
Right.
here. Of course, we know it didn't wind up working out. And when they're actually talking to Brock about this in the paper, he suggests that, hey, if football doesn't work out, I'll go to K1, or if I have to, I'll go back to WWE. We know he does wind up having one fight in K1, then becomes a UFC superstar. And what do you know? He's back in WWE doing his thing. Did you kind of always assume? I mean, I know that there's been a lot of people who've left over the years, but did you always assume, oh, yeah, he'll be back?
I hoped.
Yeah.
I hoped. I was sad when Brock left. I was very sad when Brock left because he'd been there for a couple of years. And you looked at him and you went, "Oh my God, this is the future of the business. This guy has it. This guy has that intangible that if you were drawing the perfect specimen for a wrestler, that's what you would draw." And he was it. He was living and breathing. And he was a goddamn cartoon figure come to life. So it was, yeah, I was hoping he was going to be back, praying he was going to be back.
Let's talk about where we are with the ratings. SmackDown on May 27th gets a 292 rating. Raw does a 3.52 rating. And we're starting the Raw Diva search here. It was originally planned for SmackDown. And I guess the idea is the other channels at the time, there's a top reality show at the time called America's Next Top Model. And we're looking for programming like that on a station like UPN. But that was the original plan. We know that ultimately it winds up being on Raw. Did you think that the Raw Diva search had a place on television? I mean, I understand that a generation later, a decade later, buddy, it is just huge ratings for TNA. Anytime they have the knockouts do anything, it's always the top quarter hour. Is that the strategy here with the Raw Diva search, or is it leaning more into, hey, this reality show competition thing is working everywhere else? Let's bring some of that into WWE as well.
All the above. All the above. And also looking at it as a national pursuit talent search to see, maybe look, we can find some talent out of this. And the reality show concept, the reality show contest, if you will, competition, that was doing well. That was doing well in television. That became the go-to. People always want, oh, what's my competition show I'm going to come up with? And we were looking at it as that, whereas other competitions, somebody wins. So you win American Idol. Okay, great. You pretty much go away and you do your album and you tour and that's it. But you don't get to follow them really unless you're a really, really strong fan of them in particular. Here, with the talent search, whoever wins that, they're going to be a part of the programming going forward. So that was, that was the plus, is you get new talent. And not just the winner. We were looking at all the talent coming through, is to what we could do. Who has it? Who has that special thing? Whether they win or not, it didn't matter, because if they had something, we were going to sign them. We were going to do something with them. So that was the thinking behind it.
Let's also mention that this is the era where Vince is still trying to build that library. So JR is going to meet with Kevin Von Erich to talk about world class. And there's even been some discussions about acquiring the Mid South library. And I know that you just a few minutes ago were talking about the network and saying, guys, that's been in play for a long time. I know it didn't come out until 10 years later. Well, here's the proof. I mean, they were actively trying to assemble all of these tape libraries. Is there one that you wish WWE could have gotten? It just wasn't possible, or did WWE get it all?
Uh, the boy, I'm trying not to get myself in trouble here. Um,
I would have liked to have seen you guys get Memphis, but nobody really had a clear understanding of where all the Memphis tapes were and who owns them all. I
oh,
mean,
there's a clear understanding.
okay,
Um, but the Memphis thing, that's been well documented and chronicled over the years, as far as who has what, who sold what to who got sued. And I don't know. I think that the people that ended up with it know they got screwed, and I think are just trying to make something out of it that they were promised, and it's just not worth what they think it's worth. Um, and again, it's subjective. So I have a dear friend of mine that had a, a pen collection. Um, these incredible fountain pens and things that were used to sign, treaties and things like that, and all the documentation, worth millions, worth millions in what they paid for it. At one point, they wanted to sell this pen collection, and I was involved in documenting and trying to sell the collection. And they wanted, oh my God, they basically wanted what they put into it. Okay. Several $1,000,000. I think the final figure was like $5 million for pens. Now, yeah, the Pope, signed this with this pen, and it's all documented, and you have the Pope's signature and the part of the pen and all this crap. Cool if you're a pen collector. But the pen collector doesn't want to pay, like, retail, if you will, what these things originally went for.
right.
You would think that things like that, they would go up in value, but they're only worth what someone is willing to pay. I may look at Maurice Tillet's bust in there and go, yeah, to me that's a $100,000 item. Somebody else may look at it and go, I'll give you 1,500. So now I've got to make the decision, whose value am I going to consider?
Right.
I think 1,500 is way too low. That's not a real thing, because to me it's priceless and I wouldn't sell it. But the pens were, it came down to guy offered us $350,000. He was highly insulted. The owner. Oh, he goes, it's worth much more. I said, yeah, it's really worth what? I said, I've dealt with literally the top 10 pen collectors in the world. Imagine trying to find that. Uh, and this is their offers. This is the best offer. So in the tape world, in the library world, they're worth what somebody's willing to pay for them, not what you think they are. And in dealing with a lot of these guys, and in dealing, the Von Erichs, I think, were somewhat reasonable. But the Watts family thought they were worth a great deal more than what they were. Um, the Texas tapes, Paul Bosch. and them. They thought that it was, you know, uh, worth a certain amount, but the I had gone in and negotiated on the side to the Houston library to say, "Hey, could we do this?" And the reasoning for it was because the Houston library from 1983 to 87 had all the Mid South stuff on it because that was part of Houston. So you could have gotten a big chunk of the Mid South stuff by buying the Houston library. And that fell through because JR wanted to get Mid South library from the Watts because, by God, the Watts, they're the Watts, it's Cowboys family, all that shit. Um, on the side, again, I'm getting phone calls from other family members in the Watts family that was trying to be reasonable to sell. They were like, what? What's the price, man? What are you guys willing to pay? And I'm going to Vince. Hey, I know JR's dealing with Eric and Anna, but there are other family members that are in control of this thing, and here's where they're at. And I think feelings got hurt and uh, kind of fell apart until it didn't much later on. But I think that there were times where you're sentimental, man. This means so much. We have to have this. We got to do that. That it takes away from, yeah, but what's it really worth? And it's only worth what somebody's going to pay. And when you're representing the guy buying it, you want to go in and get it for the best price that you can, and you don't want to overpay. When you go in saying, "Hey, I want to overpay for this," and then they go, "Oh, well, if they're willing to pay that, then we want this," and it becomes a shit show. And I think it became a shit show.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that Smooth Sack Summer is officially upon us. And when you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use our code STW. Summertime and the trimming's easy. The Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything you need to prepare that summer bod. Every man knows how scary it can get when you go for a close shave below the belt. And that's why Bruce and I trust Manscaped for all of our sensitive areas. Now, inside this package, you'll find the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. It's their 5th generation trimmer, and it features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads. You got a standard one to take a little off the top and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. We should also mention we've got dual LED spotlights that are going to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, because Bruce's dong is a whole different color than the rest of his body. There's also 3 length setting combs. And did I mention that this trimmer is waterproof too? Bruce was telling me he's trimmed his pubes in Puerto Rico on the beach. I've trimmed mine in the lake, and we're hoping that Silva will start waffle stomping his down the shower. This razor will devour even the strongest pubes. And now that you've got the perfect haircut, use Manscaped's liquid formulations to keep that formulation fresh, even at all the hottest summer barbecues. We're talking, of course, about this new Crop Soother aftershave lotion, and maybe Dave Silva's favorite, the Crop Preserver anti-chafing ball deodorant. Once they touch your sack, you'll never go back. Manscaped even hooked you up with 2 free gifts in this Performance Package 5.0. They got Manscaped boxers that everybody loves, and the Shed travel bag. Maybe you need some more wet products? Well, say no more. Manscaped's new Buff Bundle is all you need to keep the summer heat a breeze. The bundle includes their signature silicone scrubber and body wash. Get rid of your nasty ass loofah. Grab some freshness. And get 20% off and free shipping with our code STW at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code STW at manscaped.com. It's Smooth Sack Summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. So listen, man, I want to talk to you a little bit about Harry Smith. It's in the Torch here in 2004. He, of course, is the son of Davy Boy. He's just graduated high school, and there's been an assumption for years that as soon as he finished high school, he would get a developmental contract, but not until he graduated high school. And we know ultimately he does get signed. He had a couple of stints. Why don't you think Harry had a longer tenure with the WWE? It just felt like, well, this is going to be a for sure thing here, and maybe it wasn't.
I just think that more than anything, it was the lack of it. Big kid, good size, had a great look. Um, Wonderful human being. The human being, I think, is the right kind of person. I just don't know that he ever connected with the audience.
Do you think he's looking for the right presentation? Does he need a mouthpiece? Does he need to
I,
tweak his
I
work?
think that he was trying to be the British Bulldog.
I see.
There's only one British Bulldog. He needed to find something else.
You felt like maybe it was more of a tribute act, sort of like a tribute band rather than a cover band rather than an original.
Yeah, and again, this kind of goes back to, as we've talked about many times on this program, guys, that the juniors of the world, they're always going to be compared to their dad.
Right.
They need to get away. They need to do something different to stand out and be unique and be different, not just be, well, this is Davy Boy Smith's son. You need to be something else, become unique, become better than, become different, and not just, oh, it's Davy's kid. It's- You can only go so far as Davy's kid.
Right.
Because when people that didn't know Davy, never seen Davy, things like that, they then are, okay, I don't know who Davy is. Become something different. And I think that was probably a hindrance for him.
I never really considered that. I thought it was a shoe in because of the other direction. But hey, that's why we do this show. We're learning. I want to learn a little bit more about John Layfield too. He caused a bit of controversy, and as a result of this, he lost his job with CNBC. It all happened because on June 5th in Munich, Germany, he's going to start goose stepping and making Nazi signs on 6 occasions. And the actions took place during a series of matches that started with a singles match with Eddie Guerrero, and then it turns into a handicap match when Booker T joins in, and it finishes as a tag team match when Undertaker is going to help out Guerrero. There's a lot of live reports who say that the fans didn't find this stuff even the slightest bit entertaining. And of course, it's written in the Observer correctly. He wasn't trying to be entertaining. He's trying to get heel heat. And he perhaps didn't realize exactly what he was doing. There were no charges filed, but he's going to be in a little bit of trouble. He's going to leave the country without incident. And this is a crime that is heavily regulated in Germany. It's randomly enforced, and it's going to get a heavy fine for a first offense, a short jail term on a second offense. If they deem it a federal crime, well, then he could go to prison for up to 5 years. And all of this seems to me a little silly. Like, I don't think anybody really believes for a second that the real life John Layfield is a freaking Nazi. He's playing a character, and we've had so many Nazi characters in wrestling. And I realize we've gotten better, and that's not what we're doing anymore, et cetera, et cetera. But in this era, here's a 36-year-old who thinks, hey, man, I'm a heel. I'm here to get heat. Let's lean into it. The result is CNBC puts out a press release that says CNBC has terminated its relationship with John Bradshaw Layfield following his conduct this past weekend in a wrestling match. We find his behavior to be offensive, inappropriate, and not befitting anyone associated with our network. And I can't help but think that in a weird way, this probably helped propel him even further up the ladder inside the confines of WWE. What do you remember of all this?
Well, I remember a lot of all of it, and let's make no mistake about it. It's not silly. It's especially to the German population and the Jewish population that is very, very sacred to them, and that it's not something they want to relive, and they feel
I totally get that.
behind them. And and they take it very seriously, rightfully so. To that end, um, the fact that people had portrayed German characters and portrayed Nazi characters on television and wrestling and entertainment for many years that were not even of German descent, and doing that and portraying a bad guy in the entertainment world had been done. To do it in Germany, it had been done forever
Right.
in Germany as well. Poor taste, very guilty of poor
Yes.
taste.
Yes.
Not the time to do it. What is interesting is the reports, the Dave Meltzers of the world that had reports of people live in the arena being very disgusted and all these things, and heaping it all on John Layfield. So his reports were so accurate that he didn't get the other reports of other people on the same event, even in the same match, doing the exact same thing. But because he didn't like John Layfield, and John Layfield was probably the biggest star and had something to lose over on CNBC, that it was focused on John and everything was put there. That's the part of where I cry bullshit, but John did it. John was guilty of doing it, and it was in poor taste, and especially in his position outside of the company and in his other job. Look, not a good look, and I think that they knew what they were getting into, CNBC, and they had a heel bad guy character on a television show doing things. Um, they are what they are. You know what I mean? They fired him, great. Whatever. Did it help him be more of a bad guy for us? Yes. But I hate to say because of what he did in Germany, because I think what he did in Germany was in poor taste and probably shouldn't have been done. Not probably, it shouldn't have been done. But the overall reports and everything, they didn't report everything, and also for uh, right, wrong, indifferent, it was something that was still being done in Germany in wrestling. Otto Vaughn's group and other
Yes.
groups there, they did it on a regular basis. So John was singled out because John wasn't really. I would venture to guess, and this is me speculating. Isn't well liked by the Dave Meltzers of the world. So let's get him.
Well, hang on now. That's not. I mean, Meltzer wasn't involved in the firing here. I know you've got an
No,
ex.
no, but Meltzer was involved. Hang on. Meltzer was involved in saying, well, I had reports that people in the live audience were disgusted by this. And he didn't, again, he reported what was sexy to this situation. He didn't report the entire thing. So, yes, I think he focused his reporting on what was going to get. Wrestling expert Dave Meltzer says that he got reports from several in the crowd, and that Dave was using the CNBC shit, with his not accurately reporting everything, because whoever he may have heard from, if he even heard from anybody, didn't tell him the whole story. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story either, but I have video proof of the whole story, is the thing. And it's like, come on, Dave, you're full of shit. You don't fucking know. You listened to somebody that bought a ticket, that heard of rumblings over here that you stirred up. It's bullshit. It's just bullshit. And again, the fact that John did it, the fact John got fired at CNBC, I'm not defending any of that in any way. But in this situation is another situation where Dave Meltzer is just so full of shit. His fucking eyes are goddamn. There's no white in his eyes because they're brown because he's so full of shit.
Okay. um, To clarify my thing about silly, the idea that the real life John Bradshaw Layfield lost his job with MSNBC for something that a quote unquote wrestling character did at a non televised event to me was just silly. Now, is it a lapse
Mhm.
in judgment? For sure. It's written that the agent for the match was
But
deemed.
let me ask you this: and how was it perpetrated, and how did it become known by CNBC?
Okay, that's
By
fair.
reports of Dave Meltzer,
Okay, fair. We
and his reports were incorrect and not complete.
He was not, to be clear, the agent for the match was Dean Malenko, who happens to be Jewish. This happened to
Mhm.
unfortunately fall on the anniversary of D-Day. Layfield did not realize that. He was not told to do this by Malenko. Afterwards, he was told, don't do it again. He didn't do it again. He issued an apology as a character and in real life. And it was chalked up as being an example of a anything for heat wrestling sort of circumstance
Right.
that's no longer
Bad
okay.
decision.
Yeah. And we get all that.
Yeah.
But the idea that, I don't know, wait, we fired him for that? And in a weird way, I can't help but think that maybe Vince, even though he wouldn't want this type of attention, it's like, hey, listen, if we got this kind of attention, let's lean into it. And so we started to see this JBL character come out and cut these really strong promos about America and blah, blah, blah. Is there any way to think about, hey, how do we turn this negative into a positive? Is that what you have to do? Is lean into the reality of it?
We were already there.
Okay.
We were already there with John and America and leaning into that heavily because America at that time, look, everything with the border that was heating up during George Bush's administration, and you had Bush down on the border. As you look at John when he would wear the like windbreaker thing and all that stuff, that was George Bush on the border. And yes, we leaned into that big time because that is what was topical in America at the time.
Well, it's an interesting little moment in time because, and maybe this is one of the reasons, or maybe this is one of the better examples of when things did start to change in wrestling. Because as you said, it wasn't new. People have done this even in WWE on prior tours and even in the same matches you said, but certainly in other promotions. And going back, I mean, Fritz von Erich and so many others, my goodness, it's based
Oh,
in that. And this is maybe when we started to quote unquote get better and grow up a little bit and have a little more
yeah.
sensitivity about the way things were presented. But again, the idea that a guy lost his job over this, and it's a news organization. That's what gets me. It's like, hey, that's the real guy.
A
And
news
this
organization listening to a gossip dirt rag
about what a
to make their
character did.
decisions. Yeah.
I mean, hypothetically, I'm not saying this is the case, but if an actor were to portray himself as a pedophile and then he loses his mainstream news gig because the character was what are we doing? Like, that's not real.
Well, I would hope to God no one would ever fucking want to be a pedophile and portray themselves as one.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how is that lost on MSNBC that, hey, this is a character, man. This isn't the real guy. I don't know. It's all weird to me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something that's not weird. Contracts. They're real. And Rob Van Dam's contract is coming up on June 27th. It said that he has verbally agreed to a new deal, but he's not signed a new deal. And Meltzer would say there's really nowhere else for a talent at that level to go. Japan is hurting. And a lot of guys who've had a taste of WWE don't want to go back to Japan. The money's a lot less. It's physically harder. You don't get the same audience response. Was there a concern in your mind that Van Dam may say, nah, that's enough?
I mean, eh, I don't know if concern's the right word, but there was definitely that possibility. Rob, Rob's a unique individual. And I think, Rob has always proven he's his own man and he's goes by a different drummer. So that was definitely a possibility. I think we were hoping he wouldn't. But yeah, when you look at it, that's something that I could see Rob doing, going, you know what? No, I'm good. I'll move on.
To the
and he'll
best,
just go sit home for a while. I don't know that Rob was a spendthrift that, you know, went through his money. I think he saved his money, was pretty smart with it, and you know, took care of business.
what do you, if you had to guess, because that's what it would be, I'm sure. What do you think the relationship is like between Rob Van Dam and Triple H?
I think it was fine. I think that, during this time, I think people, looked at Triple H being, oh, he's married to the boss's daughter and he's got all this trope, yet he's still in the ring working. He's still performing. He's only on top because uh he's married to the boss's daughter. And, you can go back. I'm sure people will say, oh, Bruce is just saying this because he works there. No, you can go back, Conrad, from when we first started doing this, and I would say to you, I said, Triple H would be in the position he's in, whether he was married to the boss's daughter or not,
Right.
from day one. And the reason that I always said that was because he had an aptitude for the business, a love for the business, and did everything that he possibly could do. He could have skated through and not got to the building early and go sit in meetings to learn and to do all of these things. Didn't have to do any of that, but he wanted to, and he learned, and he got better, and had the desire, but also he put the time in. He did the work. So I don't know, man. I think their relationship was good, but I have really no way of knowing.
I only asked because I think not too long ago, Rob Van Dam did an interview where he said that his relationship with Vince was really good, but he's not so sure about the other guy. And I don't know if he means Nick Khan or if he means Triple H, but I would guess Triple H. And I know we don't talk about current stuff, but I'd never heard that he had an issue. Those two had an issue. So I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
I also wanted to bring up James Dudley. He worked for Vince McMahon Sr. back in the old Washington, D.C. office, going all the way back to the 50s. And most people would consider him Senior's maybe most loyal employee. He passes away here May 28th, 2004. He's 93 years old. And Dudley's one of the few people that when Senior sold the company to his son in 82, he said always should be taken care of, similar to Freddie Blassie. And Vince thought so much of him that he actually inducted him into the WWF Hall of Fame back in 1994, even though virtually no wrestling fan had even heard of him. And Dudley once remarked that if his own father or Senior were in a position where he could only save one of their lives, he would save Senior. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about James Dudley. What can you tell us about Mr. Dudley?
James Dudley was like he was an assistant to Vince McMahon when Vince was in Washington, D.C. His headquarters were in Washington, D.C. And Vince Sr. would run dances all around Washington, D.C. And, you're talking about in the 50s and early 60s, and things were different in America during that time. There was still segregation. There was still, whites only, and they would have black water fountains and bathrooms and restaurants where you couldn't eat at, be a part of. And Vince Sr. would run dances in for blacks only. And James Dudley ran those. And James Dudley was the one that would go by and make sure that everything was okay and everything was good. And Vince Sr. also was one of those people that, if he went somewhere and James Dudley wasn't allowed to go in, then Vince didn't go in. He would, well, okay, James, we'll go find someplace else to eat that will serve us and we'll take our money. And James never forgot that. James was a loyal uh, employee of Vince through his entire life, took care of him, did everything that he possibly could do. Now, when you talk about, the wrestling business, James Dudley was the manager of Bobo Brazil,
Mm.
came to the ring and managed Bobo in the early days when Bobo was first, coming in and all that. And so he was in the business, and was he glorified in the business? No. But in the New York territory, when Bobo was in town, James Dudley was his manager and would come in. And that was a huge deal, especially during that time where there were not a lot of African American athletes. And there were lot of great African American athletes, but there weren't a lot that were on top and that were celebrated like Bobo Brazil was. And when he came into the Northeast and worked the New York territory, he was managed by James Dudley. James Dudley was also a star in the Negro League baseball, and he was a baseball player and done that. But he was, he was viewed as the original bad Leroy Brown. Nobody would mess with Mr. James Dudley, and just a sweetheart of a man, and would come whenever we were in Baltimore, would come to the shows, and he would sit right there in Vince's office all night long. We conducted business all around him, and it was just the love and respect that Vince had for Mr. Dudley was just immense. And I used to love to sit in the office and just hear him. And all you had to do was, Mr. Dudley, tell me. Sometimes you could just say, "Tell me a story," and he would just start talking, and fascinating stories just of back in the day, and how he dealt. And it was a different world, it was a different time. And James Dudley, was that passage. And he was an incredible human being. So of course, Vince was going to honor him and put him in his place in the Hall of Fame out of love and respect.
His nickname in baseball was the Big Train. He played catcher for the Baltimore Giants from 1938 to 1947. So, man, what a story. What a life.
Yeah.
Gene Snitsky is going to get signed in this era, 2004 here by WWE. Depending on who you believe.
Not my fault.
I love you for that. He was a former football player at the University of Missouri. He was being trained at office school. 6'4" to 6'6", depending on who you believe, about 280 pounds. What was your first impression of Gene Snitsky?
Look at that big son of a bitch.
This is before he's punting babies too, by the way.
Yeah. He just was a big, nasty looking guy that was impressive. He's impressive standing there. If you're in a group of people and Gene Snitsky's in that group, people are looking at Gene because he just had that kind of he did have a natural charisma about him and a smile that would light up the fucking world.
We got some reports here in 04 of something that seems unbelievable, but of course we know years later something would happen. There's discussions that maybe Austin and Hulk Hogan might actually be getting an offer from Dubai, from the United Arab Emirates, and maybe Barry Bloom was trying to put it together. When did you first start hearing about there being an interest and an appetite for big time, big money presentation wrestling in Saudi Arabia? Because 04, that just shocked the hell out of me to read in our research for this show.
Oh my God. I mean, that's been a thing forever. I mean, I go back into the early 1980s from Saudi Arabia and Dubai and Abu Dhabi and that territory, that area of the world. Huge wrestling fans. They loved the business, anything that they could get their hands on. So when you look at early syndication, man, those were the people that were spending the money for it. So that territory, you could go in and you could put your tapes in there and make real money from it. In addition to that, even before you had the huge onslaught of VHS tapes, they were selling them in Saudi, in Dubai, and things like that. So there were always promoters. It was just the live events and things of that nature was something they did. They always did. The Von Erichs went over to Israel because of the strength of their syndication that they had over there. And it was, internationally was just something that wasn't tapped because it was unknown, and it was difficult in some places of the world to do business and get your money out. You could go in and you could run a show, be very successful, you couldn't take the money out of the country. So you had to figure out how do how do you do this? How does everybody get paid? How do we reap the reward of this? And a lot of times you would find a international promoter that would be doing business in other parts of the world that could then transfer the money to some place that you could get your money out. But those were few and far between, and you had to learn your lessons usually the hard way by going over there and never seeing any money, from your hard work.
Let's talk a little bit about Rikishi. It's written here in the Observer in '04 that there's a lot of heat on him because he's been asked to lose weight and he hasn't lost much, if any. He's hurt his ankle, so he's not able to work, but he does manage to work a show for Alpha in Allentown, which goes over like a turd in a punch bowl with the office. And allegedly, he gets nasal surgery to help him breathe better in the ring, but he doesn't tell you guys. And it's written in the Observer. According to those close to him, he signed a great contract with a downside far more than you'd think for someone at his level. And this actually works against him when he's hurt. And they think he's not coming back as soon as he can. The heat is bad enough that it wouldn't shock me to see him gone. Do you remember this? The potential heat on Rikishi?
Yeah, I do, and it's a unfortunate situation because look, he's not in the best of shape. Could stand to lose some weight, and he's just getting heavier. And then, you know, you're under contract to work, and if you have an injury, that's one thing. But even if you have to have selective surgery that is going to help you, tell people. And then you can schedule a time and make it work to where it's logical for you to be off. Instead, he did an elective surgery where, okay, he does a surgery, but nobody knows. And then he's like, well, I gotta take all this time off because I got this surgery done. So it just wasn't doing business the correct way. So it was like, okay, he's got his deal now. Is he taking it easy? And those questions were definitely asked.
Let's talk about Bruno San Martino. Linda would actually mention Bruno's name at an investors conference, and that caught a lot of people off guard because it felt like, boy, he's a name we're just not going to hear from again. And there's a little bit of context added where Wade says that he actually has a pretty good relationship with Jim Ross and gets along with Jim Ross. And they've had conversations about maybe doing stuff, going into the company's Hall of Fame and things like that. But of course, Bruno's pretty opinionated. He's very anti steroids. He's saying that Hogan was his right place, right time, had the right marketing. He got lucky. And he's pretty adamant that if he does anything with the company, he doesn't want anything to do with Vince McMahon. And we know eventually, about 10 years later, cooler heads would prevail. He'd go into the WWE Hall of Fame and he'd be reunited. I mean, he belonged there. But what did you make of this? Okay, we'll have conversations, but I don't want to talk to Vince. That's a little weird, huh?
Yeah, look, man, the heat with Bruno was one way. Like Vince didn't look at Bruno Sammartino and say, I hate Bruno. It was, when Bruno left over the issues with his son, Vince tried everything to keep Bruno here and pleaded with him, please, Bruno, we want you to be a part of the family. We want you to be here. So Vince didn't have the same hard feelings towards Bruno that Bruno had toward Vince. And Bruno just had a deep seated hatred. And so from, the company standpoint, the company didn't look at Bruno as this enemy or anybody that they didn't want to associate. To the contrary, the company wanted to associate with Bruno, wanted to work with Bruno and do things. So that wasn't, that was all one way.
Let's talk a little bit about where the company's earnings are. It's written here: the company's strong profitability was particularly through cutting back more than 21 million in administrative expenses and another 30 million in office expenses from the last year. All departments were hit with major cutbacks, forcing fewer people to work more hours. And so much of the profit went directly to Vince's pocket through dividends, another 3.2 million for this quarter, and to pay off his private jet, which is actually a company plane that transports all the major executives. I mean, just the way it's written here, boy, there's a negative slant on it. And
Of course.
I understand that, hey, we're running a business, we got to manage the bottom line. But 21 million in admin expenses and another 30 in other expenses, like these had to be major cuts that you were feeling in 2004, right?
Sure, but then didn't miss a beat. That tells you something too. That tells you that that 50 million, was probably not really, needed. And when you buckle down, and why are you in business? You are in business to make money. So if you if you have a business, you want to cut costs and you want to make more money. That's what you do. Called capitalism, folks. If you don't, then you know, don't be in business. And you don't like it, don't support it. Then, if you want a free lunch, go to the soup kitchen. But I would prefer to pay for things and be in business. And we're in business to make money.
Let's talk about somebody who wasn't trying to make money, and that's Rulon Gardner. It's being discussed here a lot because way back in 2000, there was a report that he was offered $1.5 million to join the WWE. He was coming off the Olympics in 2000, and Briscoe was courting him and talking to him about the World Wrestling Federation. But Garner wanted to hang around and compete again in the 2004 Olympics. And I guess as the story goes, his agent proposed the idea of him doing just one pay-per-view match for huge money, and the WWF passed. But it's clarified here, Gardner never actually turned down an offer of any dollar figure, let alone a seven-figure offer. It's easy to see why there was interest here. I mean, he's a heavyweight.
He beat the experiment, man.
Yes.
He beat Krellin.
Just 4 years
And
after Kurt Angle had won, now Rulon's winning and getting a lot of attention. So I could see how people would say, "Oh yeah, let's just do it again." But it didn't work out. But when I said his name, you laughed. I got to hear the story.
because when Rulon won and beat the experiment, I got a phone call that because for years, I mean, God, man, practically every year, there were overtures to Corella. Come on, man, you come and work with us. You'd be printing money as the experiment, and by God, what the undefeated Corella that had never been beaten, in his amateur wrestling career and done all these amazing things. And then the guy that beats Corella finally is an American. And I was on the White Stone Bridge headed to LaGuardia and got the call. And Angle gave me Rulon's agent's number. And I called him. Rulon was still on the floor at the Olympics. They may have been in Australia or wherever the hell they were. I don't know. But I called him and said, "Hey, this is Bruce Prichard with WWF. Congratulations. We'd love to talk to you about doing some business." And that's how it started. And then Jerry Briscoe took it from there. Um, Rulon had no interest. He really didn't. Contrary to what his agent may have said or anybody else, he kind of looked at it and laughed at it. Didn't think that his thing was I'd like to wrestle Kurt Angle for real. Yeah, what good is that? That's not going to do anybody any good. Not right off the bat. Like he wanted to shoot wrestling.
Yeah. What do you do with that?
And yeah, it's nothing there. And the and Kurt Kurt even would explain that it was a bullshit call with Rulon because he didn't have his hands locked and all this stuff. And it was it's funny when you get amateurs and shooters in the world, and you get them together to talk about other people that may be as good, if not better than them, um, they always will tend to knock the other person. Now, don't by any stretch of the imagination think I'm saying Rulon was better than Kurt Angle. I think Kurt Angle, especially at that time, would have wiped the mat with Rulon Gardner. But it's just like, not that special. And I don't, after I met and talked to Rulon several times over the years, and in talking to him, got the impression that he just wouldn't. He wanted to rest on the fact that he was an Olympic gold medalist, and he was a big farm boy, wanted to run his farm, and that was it.
Well, speaking of big farm boys, ESPN.com is going to run a front page article about Brock Lesnar here in late June. And they're talking all about what his possibilities are of making an NFL team. And they get a quote from Scott Studwell, the personnel director of the Vikings. This is the team that Brock said he wanted to play for the most because of the proximity to his daughter. He'd have more time at home with her. And here's what Scott said. As much as you'd like to take a shot on a guy like him because of his athletic history, do you do it at the expense of cutting another player? Probably not. At the expense of taking away reps from a promising young player? Probably not. With Brock, it's like you're starting from scratch, and he would say Lesnar's chances of making a roster are less than 50%. And they're interviewing Lesnar about his interest in pursuing football, and he says something like, I saw older wrestlers like Flair and Undertaker and how much they missed their families, and I didn't want to wind up like them. Plus, I didn't like the direction my character was going, and I couldn't ever get straight answers out of Vince. And they say that he blew up and quit after the South American tour. Quote, I think Vince thought I'd change my mind and come back, but it wasn't going to happen. And of course, this all comes off like an absolute asshole, is the way it reads if you're in the wrestling business. Do you remember this article and coverage? And did it change any opinions in the WWE at the time?
Yeah, I don't remember the article at all, but I think that overall the general opinion was one of, Brock thinks grass is greener on the other side. Let him go out and find out what it is out there.
Right.
I don't, it just that was what it was. I think that was a constant narrative throughout the entire thing. And those that knew and liked Brock, we were rooting for him. We were, hey man, that's what you want to do. They're always going to come back to WWF superstar. If he made it, that would have been great for everybody. And if he didn't, well, maybe he'll come back.
WWE recently had an interview with a well-respected soap opera writer about joining the team for a supposed $200,000 a year role, doing, among other things, keeping storyline continuity. It was the role that movie writer Paul Gay, a lifelong fan who wrote Liar Liar.
Paul Gay.
Paul Gay, okay.
Yeah, it's pronounced gay.
Talk to me a little bit about Paul Gay. I mean, I didn't realize that the guy who wrote Liar Liar was actually a lifelong wrestling fan and had a cup of coffee with the WWE. What can you tell us about him?
I think Paul lasted 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. Didn't last long.
Why?
Didn't last long at all. Couldn't hang. It was like, wait, you guys do this every week? He and it's funny coming from and I honestly, man, you said you did Liar Liar. I think I vaguely remember that. I remember he had all these credentials and all this other crap. But the credentials were for being able to, write one 2-hour movie or 90-minute movie and having months upon months upon months to write one, it's called 2 hours, one 2-hour feature. And that's his credit. Okay. You hear the soap opera side of things, that's different, man. That's creating every single day and writing a soap opera, man. That's every day, an hour every day. That's tough to do. And I just think he was exposed from the standpoint of all of a sudden, wait, you guys got to do 2 hours every week, all brand new, and go on. He couldn't hang. He couldn't hang. I don't know that I ever even met him in person. I listened to him on the conference calls and things like that, um, and thought, this guy's so out of touch. Um, I, you're gonna say, "Oh, I didn't like him." No, I didn't know him. I didn't like him, dislike him, or anything. I didn't know him. I heard him on the other side of calls, and I thought to myself, like, "Wow, ew, this isn't gonna last." And it was the Gorilla Monsoon in me kicked in to where don't commit this name to memory.
Oh, wow.
Um, and sure enough, man, he left in the middle of a show and was like, "I just can't do this anymore." Just left. So, it's
Well,
he gone.
there you go. He gone. Here's a story that I had never heard before. I wanted to share with you. The agents continue to do some double crossing of sorts. On the June 20th Fort Myers house show, Val Venus got in the ring for a match with Tyson Tomko. Instead, Palumbo was sent to the ring and was told he was going over, and they had to work the entire match out on the fly. The reason this is being done is to get guys used to working old style without planned spots. I love hearing that. I didn't know that. What can you tell us about this?
Dude, it's a way to teach young people. It's a way to teach someone how to feel and not go in with preconceived, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to this, and then this comes after that, then that comes after this, and we're going to do this, and then we're going to wait there, and this will get a big pop, even though when you do it, it doesn't. You don't know what to do because you were told in your head that this is going to get a big pop, and you don't know what to do. So go out there not knowing what you're going to do and feel it, and feel what the audience is doing at the time, and take the audience on a ride. And your match depends on what curves and what dips and what climbs that you have in that match, because the match is like a roller coaster and you want to take people on a ride. You want to take them up, you want to bring them down, you want to bring them around and up, and then go for the big climax, and boom, take it home. So that's what this was, and in live events it's a place to do it, and it's a learning tool.
Live events are the place to do it. There were only 2,600 fans in the crowd that night. When you ran Buffalo, there were 3,000 fans. You ran MSG with just 8,600 fans. Salisbury, Maryland only drew 2,200. Raw TV in Richmond did 5,000. SmackDown in Winston-Salem only did 2,000. SmackDown TV in Fayetteville did 3,700. I mean, this sounds like a struggling promotion, but you're still making money in 2004. So that goes to show you, even 20 years ago, it wasn't all about live event attendance, but you compare those numbers back then to the numbers WWE's doing now. It's a totally new ballpark, is it not? I mean, it's
That's a completely different business now.
Yes, it is. Well, let's talk about why we're here. The Great American Bash, we're finally here. And boy, this is not a well-reviewed show. 8% thumbs up in the Wrestling Observer readership, 78.2% thumbs down, only 13.7% thumbs in the middle, and it's nearly universal. Everybody loves Rey Mysterio versus Chavo Guerrero. Everyone enjoyed Eddie Guerrero and John Layfield. And then there were some bad things, but something that's never bad is our friends at Blue Chew. This episode and all of our episodes are brought to you by Blue Chew. Let's talk about sex, boys. Guys, remember the days when you were always ready to go? Well, now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed at BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers to you the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And here's the best part. It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. So discover your options at bluechew.com. Let's chew it and do it. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code WRESTLE at checkout. Just pay the $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com. The promo code is WRESTLE and you'll receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. And I want to thank you for letting me save you money at savewithconrad.com. If you haven't already, I encourage you, get a quick quote. Find out how much money you can save for free. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. And you can even skip your next 2 house payments. That's right. You don't have to make your July or your August payment. You're done until September 1st. And come September 1st, you're going to be saving some cash. Don't take my word for it. Just ask Kent M. He's over in Grafton, West Virginia. And just yesterday, as we're recording this, he left us a 5-star review. He said, made everything great and smooth for me. Walked me through everything. Always open to my questions. It was hands down a smooth and easy process. And I couldn't have done it without Diane. Well, thanks, Kent. How about Wesley? He left us a 5-star review yesterday as well. We had a strict timeline for closing, and this team was able to accommodate my client no problem. Everything lined up perfectly for a smooth transaction from origination to clear to close. Here's another 5-star review from 2 days ago from Charles in Texas. We appreciate Larry and Francis in helping us find the best solution for our needs. They went above and beyond to help us work through any challenges. Earlier in the week, another 5-star review. Larry and Francis were amazing. Not only were they fast and efficient, but personable. They were patient and understanding, taking the time to help us understand the process and kept things easy to understand. The whole process was smooth. I've already recommended the team to several friends and look forward to working with them again in the future. Well, thank you, Nicholas from Waterville, Ohio. We appreciate the opportunity to help you save some money because that's what we do at savewithconrad.com. We show you how to keep more of your own money. If you've got credit card debt, if you've got a second mortgage, if you've got a car payment, it's not a matter of if we can save you money. It's a matter of how much. We're routinely helping our podcast listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month. What would your family do with an extra $800 a month? That's what we can help you do. We can also help you get out of your apartment and into your very first house. We're going to ask you simple, easy things like how much do you want to put down? And by the way, 0 is a perfectly fine answer. Yes, there are 0 down loan options in 2024. And then we're going to ask you, what do you want your new house payment to be? Yeah, we ask you what payment you want, and then you go find the house to make it happen. We're going to walk you through this process and get you out of that apartment. Stop paying your landlord's rent. Stop making him wealthy. Start building wealth for your family and let my family hook you up. Again, you don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket because at savewithconrad.com, we don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. Let's get a plan to save some money together right now at savewithconrad.com or send me an email, conrad@savewithconrad.com, or give us a call toll free at 888-425-0105. But again, now is the time to start saving some cash. NMLS number 32416, savewithconrad.com. Bruce, let's get into the matches, man. We've got an interesting show. There is a dark match with Spike Dudley pinning Jamie Noble in 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Fans are into this match. It's a hot crowd. And the first match on the pay-per-view is a 4-way for the U.S. title. It's John Cena defending against Rob Van Dam, Rene Dupree, and Booker T. Man, that's pretty loaded. John Cena, Booker T, and Rob Van Dam in the same match. Ultimately, it goes 15 minutes and 52 seconds. John Cena is going to win and retain the U.S. title. Cena in his rap is going to bring up G.I. Bro. This is still the rapping John Cena era. Would you have ever predicted in this era that John Cena would go on to become the mega baby face he became?
Absolutely. Yeah, John had it. John was special. Definitely, I could see it.
We got to talk about the next match. It's Luther Reigns and Charlie Haas. Luther Reigns is a guy who, man, had $1 million look, but it felt like he had a cup of coffee here in the WWE. Angle was at ringside for the match, and Meltzer would say Reigns looked bad. It's a broken record, but he needed to have spent months talking before being put in the ring because the in-ring is never going to be his thing. He won with a move that starts as a reverse DDT and ends as a neck breaker. They badly need to give a catchy name to these new guys' finishers. What'd you think? Luther Reigns, Charlie Haas.
Shits.
Okay. All right.
Drizzling shits. Man, not good. Luther, had a great look, but wasn't ready for prime time. That damn bell rings. But it's funny you said, God, if only he needed to talk more. He couldn't do that either. Great. He's one of those guys, man. Great guy. Out of the ring, fun to hang out with, and just a great guy. But well, you look at him and think, holy cow, man, we can just go print money all day with this guy. He didn't have it. Just didn't have it.
JBL's out next to do a promo, and he's promising that he's going to win the title tonight. He says it's a Texas bull rope match tonight, which means the four corners kind. He says tonight's my vindication, and I'm awesome. Oh, you did a big exhale. You don't like the four corners?
No, I like him. Well, we'll get into it.
Okay. Rey Mysterio is going to retain the cruiserweight title over Chavo Guerrero in 19 minutes and 40 seconds. They do reference Chavo Classic. This is the match of the night. It gets 3.25 stars. I know we've spent a lot of time talking about how talented Chavo was. His match here with Rey Mysterio, man, it's probably the best match on the show. I'm not going to recommend that if you're only going to want to watch one match, this is it. But this is probably the best match on the show because we've still got some silliness to come.
Oh, no, you need to know much. Yeah, there's other matches you can watch that'll be better than this. But a great match. Thank God we had this. That's all I got to say. I mean, Chavo and Rey Mysterio on their worst day would be better than pretty much everything else. Look, man, the day was snake bit. It just was. It was brutal. It was fucking. We had the sand and pool out for the pregame show, and so there's sand all over the building, and you're just. And this was when we had gone back to, and I forever, I won't mention his name because his name shouldn't be mentioned by anybody because fuck him. But when we went back to suits and ties, and so now I'm in a nice suit and walking around this building in a tie, and it's hot and it's summertime and there's sand everywhere, and it's just. There's so many things about this show. Vince wasn't there. I mean, it was, oh God, it was horrible.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You mentioned it. Vince is not here. He's got, he's suffering from I believe, of diverticulitis. Is that the way you remember it?
I think so, yeah.
How different was it when he's not there?
So it can be one or two things. It can be great, or it can be like this, torturous. Because he's not there and he's mad, and it's like he's not feeling well, so he's mad that he's not feeling well, so he's mad at that, and then you are trying to just get business done and get going, and in the meantime you're on the phone and you're constantly everything's being second guessed, and it's one of those people that's like, okay, I'll make the decision in the moment, but then have the decision second guessed because they're not there in the moment. This is brutal. So it was a brutal day. It was a brutal.
It's written that this is the first pay-per-view that Vince has missed in over a decade. And he's constantly on the phone. He's actually in the hospital and he's unable to travel. So he's on the phone with Stephanie, Shane, Triple H, Jim Ross, and Kevin Dunn. They're trying to run the show. Are you just the monkey in the middle here? Like, it feels like, you're hearing one thing maybe from Kevin Dunn, another from Vince.
Oh, no, I'm on the phone with Vince constantly.
I got you.
Just, yeah, it's brutal.
And he's yelling at you, why are they doing this? And you're responsible for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not good.
No. Not good. At all.
Let's talk about the next match, or the next skit, I guess we'll say. Because we saw between matches between Luther Reigns and Charlie Haas's match and then Rey Mysterio and Chavo's match, we got the JBL interview. Well, as a buffer after this Rey and Chavo match, we see Tori in the hot tub with various cruiserweights who say they've all won the right to be there. And Tori stands up in her bikini, and it's the American flag, of course, and she leaves. And Funaki looks right at the camera and says, "God bless America." How much fun did you have with Funaki in segments like these?
Love Funaki. As a matter of fact, Funaki's son was in Corpus Christi, Jesse, and looks just like his dad. And it was incredible. It was just so great to meet him, and as respectful and polite as his father. Looks just like him. So I had to text show, and so I just had the pleasure of meeting your son. It was a very cool moment. But Funaki's the best.
Here is maybe something that wasn't the best. Kenzo Suzuki is going to pin Billy Gunn in 8 minutes and 6 seconds with a low blow and another move that started like a reverse DDT, but dropping high on Gunn's back on his knee like a backbreaker. And here's the write-up from the Torch. The crowd was dead. The show started falling apart here. Suzuki's push is that he's a personal project of John Laurinaitis, who saw something in him that nobody else sees. Can you believe that? Having never seen him wrestle, that this guy was booked to headline all summer against Chris Benoit before it was dropped because his planned gimmick was recognized as a bad idea. -1 star. I do remember there being a lot of hoopla about his debut. And as a friend of mine says, then the bell rang. It went nowhere. What can you tell us about this Kenzo experiment?
It sucked. It was fucking horrible. Like, does he know how to work? Does he realize what the fuck it is we do? He was rotten. I mean, rotten. His wife had some personality. Too much. But, holy cow, man. He did not belong. He wasn't, when I say wasn't ready for prime time, man, he just wasn't ready in anybody's category, any way that you want to slice it, man. Suzuki just was not, he just was not ready. He was not good. Didn't understand. Rotten. Just absolutely rotten. No other way to say it.
You think he's going to go in the WWE Hall of Fame someday?
No.
What are the odds of that, you think?
0.
More deserving of being in the WWF Hall of Fame, James Dudley or Kenzo Suzuki?
Oh, James Dudley 1,000 times over.
Sable and Tori are going to team together at WrestleMania 20 and defeat the Raw Divas, but now they're going to hook up. Sable versus Tori Wilson. It's a match on pay-per-view. 6 minutes and 6 seconds. -1 star. Not good. Finish wasn't good.
Yeah.
We've got Sable selling like she's knocked out. Nobody's buying it. Wilson's not going to press it. Sable wakes up, uses a schoolgirl, turns Wilson over so far that one shoulder is nowhere near the ring. Charles Robinson still counts it down. That's the finish. The announcers have to try to cover. This is just bad. This maybe looks good on paper, but in execution, whew, okay.
They look good in the ad.
Yeah, great in the ad.
Yeah.
Moving on, Dawn Marie is in a flag bikini. She's talking to Rene Dupree, who says that he got cheated. He's going to protest Cena's title reign, and he's going to hit on Dawn and offer to show her his French tickler. Then he starts dancing, and here comes the FBI. Next up, on the same show as Kenzo, Mordecai is here. And he's going to beat Bob Holly
Mordecai
with the razor's edge. Wade says, they made a big mistake having Mordecai sell so much because it went from the powerful squash it needed to be to a boring match that hurt the guy who won. Holly was making the new guy pay with hard clotheslines, which is well and good, but that's not how you elevate a newcomer being geared for Guerrero and The Undertaker. After this, maybe they'll have second thoughts. Half a star. This Mordecai thing, this was DOA, wasn't it?
Yeah. We actually had high hopes.
Sure.
Kevin Thorne was a decent worker, and this gimmick was kind of the antithesis to the Undertaker, and this was another situation where we looked at, hey, we'll create a opposition to the Undertaker, and then he can grow from there and move on and do some different things. Dan Madigan, who wrote See No Evil, was on the writing team at the time, was in love with Mordecai. He was from Boston. Mordecai. Dan was an interesting cat. Good guy. He lasted a lot longer than 6 weeks or whatever the other guy. But it just didn't work. They didn't buy it, didn't like it. And this first impression of working with Bob, where Bob's like, you gonna beat me, you're gonna have to beat me. And shouldn't have been designed that way. And I don't know that Kevin Thorne was in a position, at that point of that stage of his career, to speak up and say any different. So that, I think he was failed a little bit on the production side of things from whoever produced that match and put it together. It should have been explained to everybody, look, this is to get this guy over. He needs to be strong, he needs to be dominant, and that didn't take place. Yeah, it sucked.
What does take place is a fun match that JBL and I are going to watch back later this week at adfreeshows.com on the exact anniversary, June 27th. So this Thursday, I'm going to be watching it with your pal JBL. And this is when he wins the WWE title from Eddie Guerrero in a bull rope match. Now, I mentioned a minute ago, it's a Texas bull rope match. So the rules are there's no pinfalls, there's no submissions. You got to touch all four corners. And the first time I remember seeing that as a kid is with Stan Hansen and Lex Luger in WCW. I loved it back then.
God.
And I still love it here. And I know that it was made famous with Dusty Rhodes and others. What can you tell us?
Wahoo McDaniel.
All right. You ain't got to get hot about it. Tell us.
I'm hot about it.
All right. Let's hear about it.
Well, Wahoo had the Indian strap match.
Right.
And the idea behind it was you could beat your opponent with that Indian strap, by God. And when that rawhide leather got wet and it came across your skin from swinging it as hard as you can, and sweat flies, and it's going to cut right through you like it. And then you beat your opponent so bad that the only way to win this match is to drag your opponent around and touch each of the four corners in succession to win that. But in order to do that, you have to have your opponent beat so badly that you're able to do that, because if they stop you in the middle, then it starts all over again. So that was the foundation of the strap match Dusty then used for the bull rope match, for chain matches, and things of that nature. It was a way to beat your opponent without having to beat them and pin them. So we're looking for a gimmick match, for John, and wanted to do the bull rope match, which I love, because big Texan. Okay, man, let's do this bull rope match. This can be your match. And I had a finish that I stole that had never taken place, and it was essentially the finish to the Harley Race Wahoo McDaniel match that broke down, and the whole NWA getting in an uproar and all this stuff. But the idea was that John is pulling Eddie around and hits the third turnbuckle, and he's going to reach. He's trying to get to that last buckle, and Eddie stops him, and Eddie's got him stopped, by God, and everything. And the referee is at that fourth buckle, and he's looking for whoever's going to touch it, get to that last buckle and touch that last buckle. And John, turns his back to the referee, reaches in his trunks and pulls out like a little razor cutter and cuts the rope, and the rope breaks free, and John touches the last turnbuckle. Now, one flaw to this, okay, was that the Wahoo finish with Harley Race was going to be it was Wahoo's match, the babyface. And Harley, the heel, cuts the rawhide strap. Harley takes the strap around and goes, cheap rawhide. Wahoo takes his strap and goes, clean cut. This would never break. In this, it was just a cheating JBL. Well, I did what I had to do. I can't help the broke break. We're broke. And Eddie going, and you go back and you actually see it in the replay. But the fact is he did touch the fourth turnbuckle and he did win. Very controversial finish. That is the way that the match was sold in the first place. It was sold in this way for this finish. I always wanted to do this finish. And it was bought with that sale. And went into it all along. Everybody had the same finish in mind. That was the match. That was the finish. And we get there that day, and Vince says, "What are you guys doing in the?" Oh, and John, bless his heart, wanted to have lights on the ring, so they would light up each time you touched them, because that's how Otto Vons did it in Germany. I never saw that. I didn't like that. I didn't get that, but we did it. Vince says, "What are you guys doing for a finish?" We're doing the finish we talked about. Oh, what's that again? Boom, they go and they hit the corner. John takes the cutter out, cuts the rope, touches the fourth corner. Damn, Bruce, that sucks. Can't you just tie him up and pin him? So that's not how you win. You got to touch all four corners. What? I said, yes, you got to touch all four corners. We've done promos about this. I've got to beat you so bad that I'm going to be able to drag you around the ring and touch all four corners. I don't have to pin you. I don't have to make you submit. I'm going to drag you, sense. How do these things normal? That's how they work. You ever seen a bull rope match?
Oh God.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them. You could do either way. Dusty did them with a finish, and I said, but we also did it where we drug people around the ring. Get some other ideas for. Go talk to Eddie and talk to John, and they come back. It was something. Vince hated that. It says, call Dusty. Get a finish from him. So Vince, Dusty's in TNA. I don't give a fuck where he is. Call him. So I called Dusty. Day of. Sitting in the crowd, I called Dream. Dream was on the back of a pickup truck in Universal Studios lot. They were shooting TNA, doing something TNA that day. And he takes a call. I said, Dream, how are you? Good, Punkin' How you doing? I said, got a question for you. You got this thing, bull rope match tonight? I said, let me throw at you what we had. And I'd really appreciate it if you maybe could give me some ideas, something. I owe you one. And the other unknown part of this was Dusty had been talking to Steph about coming on to the writing team.
I see.
Okay. I didn't know that part when Vince told me to call Dusty. Or actually, I did. No, he did. He told me. But regardless. So Dream gave me some shit. And lo and behold, we ended up doing what we did, which I don't really even fucking remember. Whether I think Eddie nailed him into the rope or so. I don't even. I was so frustrated because it was like the match was predicated on that finish. The returns were predicated on that finish. The match was booked because of that finish. and day of, he doesn't get it. So we're scrambling trying to, and everybody's like, "This is what we talked. This is what we're gonna do." Get it? You don't want to do it now.
My God.
So we're scrambling. They're like, "You called Dusty? Doesn't he work at TNA?" And again, I mean, it's such a the whole day was frustrating. So many ways. Where I finally threw my arms up. Whatever we do. Okay, next. And that was kind of the story of that match. And it was making John, and the thing was, I want to make John a dastardly, horrible, low life heel
Yes.
that would stoop to anything that had never been done in a match. Yeah, we didn't do it. So it was what it was. The match was, look, hey, the bull rope match, the match itself was good, but I thought the finish was, yeah, yeah. Pat Patterson would say, yeah.
JBL threw Guerrero off the middle rope onto the Spanish announce table. The table doesn't break. JBL then power bombs him through the table. And Wade would say the match ended with your classic bull rope match finish, as both guys touched three corners and were struggling for corner number 4 when Guerrero leaped over JBL to win, which is the classic face finish, and was announced as the winner until Angle reversed it. When fans realized that Guerrero lost the title, he got a hell of a reaction out of appreciation. 3.25 stars. It's written here that here's what Dave had to say. The title change to JBL was a relatively recent decision. It was McMahon's decision as much as to get the belt off Guerrero, as there was a feeling it was time for a heel champion to be chased. While Guerrero was far more popular than JBL among most wrestlers, the reaction we got was negative to the decision. From a box office standpoint, it doesn't really matter at this point. JBL's character has been thought of strongly by McMahon from the start. Michael Hayes and Bruce Prichard were said to be strong advocates of JBL as champion. JBL was helped greatly by the controversy because putting the belt on him enabled Vince in his own mind to thumb his nose at his own detractors and win what was really an imaginary fight. It was clear from the interview on SmackDown that Vince was seeing JBL, due to the controversy, as an extension of himself, being unfairly persecuted in his mind and vowing the last laugh. The bull rope match saw both men touch three corners, and Guerrero apparently leap over JBL to touch the fourth, and he was announced as the winner and still champion. Angle then came out, showed an instant replay, which showed JBL's back hit the fourth corner before Guerrero's hand, and the decision was reversed. What do you make of this? That Vince thought he had been unfairly persecuted, and this was him having the last laugh. And hey, if you're going to be negative on my guy JBL, we'll show you. You think that played any part of it?
No, I think we were looking for a heel, and we felt that John was the right heel. And again, looking at the times and looking at the times in America and where we were and how people viewed the authority in America, and it was John was everything about that, and it was from John, being on CNBC and getting fired from that. Look, he had a lot of visibility, and it was a perfect opportunity to capitalize on all of that, his outspokenness in general, and it was an easy, probably the last, then just really the last time we were able to do that with current affairs and really get away with it, kind of in my opinion.
I wanted to get your opinion on this. I saw an interview with The Undertaker in the last couple of weeks where he was asked, who do you think's the most underrated that you came across? And Undertaker really thought, and he said, man, you're asking me to go down like a 30-year Rolodex. I'm paraphrasing it. But he landed on JBL. And he said that by the time, he started as the cowboy and then was an acolyte and then an APA. But when he started this JBL, this Justin Bradshaw Layfield character, that the whole thing changed, and he was really good on the mic, but also really good in the ring. And he doesn't think he gets his props even now. What do you make of Undertaker saying that JBL might be the most underrated of the last 30 years?
Couldn't agree with him more. Because it's true. You took a guy that had done a lot of different gimmicks who came in trying to emulate Stan Hansen. That okay, again, when you try to become something else, John Layfield is a very smart businessman. He's very controversial in his beliefs and everything, but he is a financial whiz and he studies, very intelligent, is a human being. And all we did was take the human being, turn him up volume 100 times, said, here we go, and here's JBL. It was him being himself turned up to 100 because that was the guy, man. He wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He reads the all the trades and studies all of his financial stuff, looks at all the world news, but studies it and goes to all different sources, doesn't make his opinion based off of one. I want to say he reads roughly 4 to 5, newspapers. Now he's on the internet, obviously, but every morning, starting at 5 o'clock in the morning, and would start, getting his trades done and know what he was going to do that day financially and watch the stock market, but also prepare uh, for his stuff at CNBC, but then later on Fox uh, Finance. Just he's a bright guy. That's who JBL was, and we just turned it up and gave him an edge. So it was people don't like successful people,
Hmm.
and especially when those successful people throw it in your face.
Right. Well, let's talk about something I have wanted to throw in your face for a while. It's our main event.
Don't throw that motherfucker at me, man.
The Undertaker and the Dudleys in a
I'll
handicap
throw it right
match.
back at you.
The idea is we're going to have Paul Bearer in a glass crypt.
No, a concrete crypt.
Sorry. It's glass, and we're going to fill it with cement. So that's the stipulation. Well, the Dudley boys were supposed to be singles, but now we're back together as a tag. Bubba's going to start taunting the Undertaker, telling him to lay down and be pinned. He lays down, but then snatches Devon. They start fighting. And the match is consisting of Heyman pulling the lever whenever he's mad at Undertaker, who's supposed to lay down. And Paul Bearer kept saying that Undertaker would never let him die. And he became so obnoxious about it that people wanted him half gone. The whole segment's just dying. Devon uses a low blow. Undertaker sits up. Paul Heyman pulls out the urn to control the Undertaker, but instead he chokeslams Bubba and pins Devon after a tombstone. And Heyman is vowing to flip the switch for good. Lightning strikes him down. Undertaker pauses in front of the switch, and then the Undertaker pulls the switch. A major flop of a main event is the way it's described. Yeah. Paul Bearer was not actually inside the crypt, but instead they had someone dressed up like him. The close-up shots that aired on the screen were filmed earlier in the day. When Heyman pulled the level for the cement to come out the first time, there was a snafu in the building and no cement came out. However, on the screen, they used the pre-tape, which showed Bearer in a case filling up. The guy in the crypt was buried underneath the cement for a few seconds before they opened the door and all the cement poured open. And yeah.
Yep.
People left the building.
That pretty much sums it up.
Not really. I mean, in the building, fans were quiet for a main event that came off more like a religious, non-passion play than a pro wrestling match. Worse, because it was in the main event spot. Fans leaving the scope were said to be quiet, reacting as if what they'd seen was hardly what they wanted to see out of pro wrestling. The curiosity over the Undertaker character has slightly increased SmackDown ratings and strongly in his quarter hours, but it's not even certain where it ends. There's been talk of putting Undertaker with Heyman as a full fledged top heel, but even though that seemed the most logical direction, it's also the least likely. There's heat between Undertaker and Heyman stemming from a period where Heyman was the head writer of SmackDown and he wanted to tone down The Undertaker's push in order to build newer characters. It's said that Vince McMahon wanted Undertaker to be a tweener who could work with anyone, figuring the fans would keep him babyface because it's a lot of work to get them to boo him now. But SmackDown is so weak on star power, he's considered by fans the biggest star, which makes it hard for him to be a heel. This is just a fucking mess, Bruce. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, it's right. So a lot goes into this. Paul Bearer had reached a point where traveling for him was very difficult. He had put on so much weight that traveling through airports, just getting up and down, he could go to the ring, but he couldn't get into the ring. He was in very poor health and needed time off. He needed to go away and he needed to get healthy. So kill him off. Then the idea was, well, what if we actually killed him off? And it was this. I think this was Dan Madigan too, the concrete crypt, and Vince loved it. Thought, great, we'll bury him, live on television, concrete crypt, and some of those things start off as haha, and then they start off as haha, and then they become reality, and that's when you go, oh, this off. So again, Paul was in very poor health, and obviously you couldn't have Paul out there for it. So yeah, we shot everything with Paul ahead of time, then put an actor look-alike out there for the actual match. It was far enough away from the audience that you really couldn't tell, and and I sat in the audience and looked, and I was okay. You know what? I'll buy this because I really can't tell. And yeah, you had your snafu where fucking shit's supposed to go, but it doesn't. Yet we'll go to a pre-tape because you got to go to the pre-tape because God forbid you had nothing to go to, and so there were snafus like that. That if I could have murdered somebody, I probably would have at that point. But it was it was horrible. It was absolutely. It was a horrible idea, horrible execution. And then when we got to the end, I'm sitting there going, okay, once we bury him, where do we go off the air here, folks? I think that's a fair question. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, how long, when this completely covers you, how long till we need to get you out of there? 5 seconds, 10 seconds? And he goes, oh, I'll be able to hold my breath probably at least 30 to 40 seconds, maybe even an entire minute. Ooh. So that's in water, man. This is like, whatever it was, oatmeal cement shit. And he goes, no, I'll be able to, I can hold my breath, and all this stuff. I said, yeah, I get you can hold your breath, man, but this is going to be like on you. It's weighted. It's not, you're not underwater where you can just pop up. We got to get you out of there. And it won't be a problem. So he had a panic button when to, get out and shit. And we went like in about 3 seconds, and he had hit the panic button 3 seconds. And we had to get him out. That's why we went so quickly, out of there. Um, but Yeah, I felt bad for Taker. I felt bad for Paul Bearer, Dudley's, even a little bit for Heyman. No, yeah, I felt bad for everybody involved. It was horrible. It was just, it was. I think it was a poor concept, poor execution, and just to this day, I can't give you and or defend any definitive reason why any of that would have been good. And the again, man, the execution of, oh God, this is rotten. And we did it. We did it. We rehearsed it. We did it. We did it with Paul Bearer and shit. But yeah, it was bad. Folks, it was, if you ever wonder what a fart in church looks like, watch this match. None of it made sense.
That's really bad.
None of it made sense. Why does Heyman want to kill Paul Bearer? And then when all's said and done, after Undertaker basically rescues him, why does Undertaker kill him?
It makes no sense.
No answers to any of those questions were ever answered.
This is just what Vince wanted.
Well, I mean, yeah, in the moment. And then it was so bad that you prayed people would forget about it. And just think that, hey man, I had a fever dream. It's hot. It's the summer. It's a fever dream. This didn't actually happen. That's what I chalk it up to. Because it was. And it was ask anybody that was around me that day or that night. Man, I was not a happy camper.
Of all the bad things, because you've been honest before and said that, boy, the Undertaker really is not always your biggest fan because you've put him in some less than awesome positions. He's had some less than fantastic creative. Where does this rank as far as bad ideas with the Undertaker?
Oh, it's up there, but at least he knows this one wasn't me.
Right.
But it's up there. Definitely top 5.
Only top.
Probably top 2. This was rotten.
Tristan says, what was the reaction when the rehearsal footage of Taker and Bear got leaked online?
Oh, livid. Just, and that was from the building.
Oh,
somebody got it from the building feed. Wow. I talked to the building manager that day. So I want to know who's going to be fired. Shit happens.
Want to know why we didn't run the scope again? Well, maybe we figured it out. Next week, Bruce, we're going to be talking about Night of Champions 2008. This is the nearing the end of your second tour of duty with the WWE. We've got Triple H and John Cena in the main event for the big belt. We've got Edge and Batista for the world title. We've got Katie. We got Mickey James. We got Kofi Kingston. We got Chris Jericho. And the last appearance of Hardcore Holly. Yeah, in the back there, you see Cody Rhodes with the tag strap. How about that? We're going to be talking about all of this next week here on the program. You can ask us a question over at somethingtowrestle.com. It's your home for all things Bruce Prichard. If you haven't already, go hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and be sure to ring that notifications bell so you know the next time we're live. By the way, if your business targets men that are 25 to 54 years old, and there's no better place to advertise than right here with us. It really works. That's why you hear some of the same ads week in, week out for years. We've got a super targeted audience, so there's very little waste. So again, if you're looking for dudes 25 to 54, we got them. Find out how affordable it is to advertise on the program at advertisewithbruce.com. Don't forget to follow us on all forms of social media as well. It's at Prichard Show on Twitter and Instagram, Something to Wrestle over on Facebook. But again, the home for all things Bruce Prichard is somethingtowrestle.com. Bruce, I never know what to expect when we sit down and click record, but this felt like old times today, man. We got almost 2.5 hours out of an interesting time in WWE. Thanks for all the time this morning. This was a fun show.
Absolutely. It was fun. Rotten is fun sometimes.
It is.
Revisiting really bad shit.
It's fun.
Sometimes.
It is.
It
Well,
is.
stay tuned, boys and girls. We'll be back talking about 2008 next week, right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Sometimes Jimmy Jam came along. Those were the best times. Now they're gone. Go check out Freebird Road on YouTube. Listen, since we've done this, we've increased the viewership by 6,000. We need to get, it's 820,000. We need to get it over 1 million, folks. All right, so go check it out. Freebird Road on YouTube, because this is a thing I've got with Michael Hayes. Doot. And we got to go and do it. And by God, I'm going to learn more lines of the song. But for right now, all I know is sometimes Jimmy Jam came along. Those were the best times. Now they're gone. Rock on.
So long, everybody.